All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Flyer podcast. And as you just heard, all of that Flyers talk and hockey talk that we had before this, we are now going into the interview with Franny Drummond. So, Franny, thank you for coming on. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm good. Honored to be
Yeah,
on.
yeah. So, if you guys don't know, Franny is the one who paints a lot of the Flyers goalie masks. So to kind of break it down, Franny, how many goalies have you painted like the masks for the Flyers in general? And one thing is that you just painted that new Brian Elliott mask, which was debuted in practice the other day. So tell us a little bit about that, and then tell us a little bit of the backstory of how you kind of got into this and some of the Flyers goalies you've painted masks for.
Okay, so some of the I started in 2010. Um, we actually did a charity event for Riley Cote, which you guys just recently had on.
Mm-hmm.
We had emailed him and asked him if we could, maybe do something nice for his charity, with his sister with MS and all that, and the Cote Carnival, which was a great event.
Mm-hmm.
So emailed him. He got back to us. So we thought it'd be really cool to do like a panel that is like the Broad Street Bullies versus the newer bullies, which Riley was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a now and then kind of panel, which was like Riley kind of facing off with Dave Schultz, and we did kind of Rocky and all kinds of stuff in the background. Why I'm saying this is because this is kind of how it all started.
Yeah.
Um, we had did that and brought it down to the charity event, and we end up um, doing really well with it. It got a lot of money that was raised, and I got to meet a lot of the players. Started to come down and see it, and that's where I met Derek Settlemeyer, and Riley introduced me to Ray Emery at that time.
Wow.
And and it was kind of weird because Derek Neil Little was there. I'll never forget. There's a bunch of players that came. I was kind of overwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
because I just really wanted to do a nice panel for those guys
Yeah.
to help them out. And I remember Derek going, "Hey, do you do goalie masks?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've done a bunch of goalie masks, but for kids and things like that, some college stuff." And he's like, "Hey, do you want to paint Ray Emery's Winter Classic mask?" And I'm like, "What? Like, are you serious?" I'm
Yeah.
like, "Of course." And he gave me his card, and I didn't think anything of it. He's like, "Well, Razor will give you a buzz," and I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Like, I never thought that would ever happen.
Yeah.
And sure enough, Ray gave me a call, and we talked about it. And I remember at that time, Ray wanted to do like kind of a Broad Street Bullies thing, but with like goalies. Like he loved Hextall and Bernie and all that. So we end up doing it and bringing it down. And I remember I met Brian Boucher at that time, and he was still waiting for his helmet to come in. Um, so he came over and looked at it, and I was kind of starstruck a little bit too with, Bush and, Emery and stuff. And, I kind of became friends with Derek, and Riley kind of, hooked us all up together, which was kind of a good blend. Because Derek, he's so great,
Yeah.
and so energetic. Just his whole family's hockey, and it kind of started from there. I remember maybe 2 days after or the next day, Bush actually called me and said, "Hey, I got my helmet. I don't really like it. Would you paint me a helmet?"
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to go back to what I had with the jet fighters. When he had the jet fighters on there, and I said, "Yeah, well, let's do it. Let's get it done." And that's when they kind of started their run. You know, for some reason, which was kind of weird, is we did Emery's, and then Emery and Bush kind of got hurt when they were on that Florida road trip. And I remember, I'll never forget this, is Derek called me up and said, "Hey, I need you to paint me a mask. I already ordered it. It should be there tomorrow." And it's right around Christmas time, and we have the, you know, um, Winter Classic coming up against Boston. So I was like, "Well, who's our goalie?" He's like, "Well, Michael Layton." And I go, "Michael Layton?" who's that guy? You know what I mean? Like, I knew Michael Layton just from like the AHL and stuff like that, and he's like, yeah, he's like Michael Layton wants to wants to get a. I need it done in like 4 days, and I'm like, what? I'm like, are we doing like a Winter Classic one? Like, is he going to be our Winter Classic goalie? He's like, he's just gonna wear it all season, so make it Winter Classic / season.
Anything,
So
yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of, we did that in 4 days. And
So how long does that take, like, normally, like, if you had a lot of time?
like Carter Harts and those guys, it really depends on like the Carter's takes a little while. I know Mason took a while.
Yeah.
We've had to pull some all-nighters because if he didn't play well or whatever, sometimes goalies. It's the equipment or whatever. So, there was a lot of times that we end up, Derek gave me the late call and said, hey, I need a new one. We need a new start. Let's do something different for Mace. So we would redo something else. And it was fun. I mean, it's always like a challenge. No joke. We actually had this helmet ready for Elliot once. I mean, I think I only had to literally just do the back plate and add a little touch-ups. But he drew a picture for me, and he's like, listen, we're playing so well. I'd really like to do something like this. And he sent me a picture. That's kind of funny because I still have it. It's kind of, colored in with, crayons. And I'm like, he's like, can you make this cool? And I'm like, absolutely. He's like, I really want to dominate the orange color on this. And instead of like, he's, loves Felix Potvin mask. So I drew one up with the whole eyes with the Felix, and he's like, I kind of want the antlers in there and, the whole moose thing. I'm like, absolutely, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, because he's always had the moose on the back plate.
Right. Yeah. Because he came in to Philly, and he had his logo and everything ready. Like it says it's like a BE at the chin that we always put on. But if you look at it close, it's actually 37. If you look at it really close.
Yeah.
So he actually came in with he had a designer to make up his logo and all that.
That's awesome.
It's pretty cool. So he came prepared.
Yeah. So out of all that, and then starting with the Flyers, how did you first start getting into actually painting them, like the masks themselves?
Well, I went to art school in Miami. I was always a goalie, believe it or not. I played since I was 4 years old. So
You still play today?
I don't. I
No.
play defense. Okay. But I got accepted to Southern Maine. I used to go to Cap Raider, but I'm giving away my age. But Cap was the only goalie school that was really out there, and I got picked up by Southern Maine. Was there, and it was a D3 school. And me and my dad went up there and looked at it, and I'm like, God, it is freaking freezing up here. So I'm like, am I going to be a goalie, or like, am I going to kind of pursue this art thing? Because they didn't really have the greatest art program. So I ended up going to Miami and selling my equipment, and that was really it. But I still played down there, but I never really got back in net. So it's kind of weird. And I painted surfboards and stuff like that for a living. And once I moved back up and bought a house back up this way, I kind of got back into the helmets and things like that.
Yes. So kind of going into like I guess like the art of it. Like, so how do you like do the paint? Is it like hand painted, or is it like spray paint, or?
It's all airbrushed.
Okay.
A lot of times we do both, because we do a lot of motorcycles and all kinds of helmets and things. It's kind of like a natural, changeover. Like goalie masks are a little more harder and challenging to do because of all the hole placements and the straps, and you really got to know kind of where you're at. So we end up hooking up with Bauer to be a certified painter. Derek had helped us with that because in the NHL you really have to be certified. They want to know what kind of paint, and we have some sponsorships through our paint companies. So we're backed pretty good on the paint side of it, if something were, they don't want like the puck to hit and a paint job to fly in the net. So it's like you really kind of got to know what you're doing, and it's nice because it's like a really small little family with the NHL painters. I know Dave LaRue from he's an amazing painter. He's done like Chicago and Sylvie. There's two Sylvies. One actually does Brodor's legendary mask. They're both great and talented, headstrong. There's so many great painters out there. But it's interesting because you have to really kind of, establish yourself and do some masks before you can, like Brizz's mask. I'll never forget that one. I'm sure you'll get into that one. He's a wild one.
Yeah, and Amadeo, I'll let you go in a minute. But one thing I wanted to ask is, what's the hardest mask you've ever painted?
Hardest one, I'm gonna have to say like Mason.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, is that the one with all the zombies?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Mason, love him, and we kind of hooked up with the NHL Network when we first surprised and did the first one, because they kind of took videos of us doing it, because no one's ever actually taken current players and put them on a mask. They've always done like legendary guys.
Yeah, like old retro guys, stuff like that.
Guys, but they've never taken like G or Simmer or Voracek or whoever's on your team that you're playing with and put them on the mask. Because usually it's like tributes. Mace when we did Mason's, when he came in, he said, "I'm a huge Walking Dead fan." So I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. I said, I have an idea. I'll get back to you. Let me kind of come up with some sketches. So I was doing like some Walking Dead stuff in Philly and, like the old city and stuff. I said, but I really, really have a killer idea. I said, why don't we take some of the older players like Bernie and Bobby and those guys, because obviously some of them looked like zombies when they came out of games. No offense, but they were that was when hockey was hockey.
Yeah.
And those guys were just like the Broad Street Bullies. I said, why don't we turn them into zombies? And then we'll do like, he does 3 masks a year. So we were going to do like, basically like almost a series, like The Walking Dead, which I thought was a cool idea. And Mace was like, yeah, that's cool. Let me think of who I can put on there. I already drew up the Bernie Perrott one. We end up skipping the whole legend one and going right to the current players. Because he's like, well, I really want to, he was excited because he's like, I want G and all his buddies on there. But each year, why I'm saying this is it got harder and harder because we had to put Del Zotto on there and then Matty Reed. And it's like he was texting me at like 10:30 at night. And he's like, yo, do you think you could get, another guy on there? And I'm like, Mace, dude.
Like Braden Chen or Hartnell or something.
We got like 15 guys on this hockey match.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember seeing it and it had like Hartnell, Giroux, Simmons, and Voracek. Like those are the only guys I remember.
In the beginning.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well,
it just gradually went down. It just gradually went down by the roster.
It really did. It really did. I kind of had to, we had to put a limit of, I could put 4 to 5 guys per side. And that's even like tight. Like, I remember the last one, the 50th anniversary one, we had, Gudis and those guys on there. And I'm like, dude, like I'm going to tell you, we had like 15 guys on there.
Surprised you didn't have the entire roster on there.
Pretty much. And I had to limit it. And it was kind of neat because he's like, you don't understand, like, everyone wants to be on the mask. Like, all his buddies want to be on the mask now. And after the 3rd year, you were like, all right, like, we're just kind of just putting people on here. Let's just zombie everybody. That one was the most challenging one, though, for sure.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, when I look at it, I'm like, that has to be so hard. Like, all the the physical details of the players and everything, that must take forever.
It does, and then you have to still, make them look who they are.
Yeah.
In a way, So that was like, I mean, some of the faces weren't even an inch big, and you're trying to get all that detail in there.
Yeah.
And then we always do Derek and Harry on the back as the equipment guys, because he always pays homage to people that do the work for them guys and make sure they get what they need, which I always thought was cool because he never forgot about them. So they got the whole back plate.
So. Yeah, and when you were bringing up Ilya's Brizgalov, because I know you wanted us to talk about that, it's just like that entire year just with Brizgalov and his goofiness just was weird. Like the Winter Classic mask that he had, like representing a lot of Philadelphia. Then he had the Tiger mask going into the end.
And then he had the Star Wars one too.
The Star Wars one was the worst because I ended up saying, I remember going down there with like Channel 10, and Derek can vouch for me. They asked me to do like because it was the lockout that year, remember? And we end up going down there, and I can't even tell you how many media people were down there, and we go in there, and I'm like, man, this is gonna be crazy, and Briz, he don't like anybody as far as like media, so I end up asking Zach Hill to talk to Briz to make sure it was okay, and he's like, oh no, we're good, we're just gonna do like a small video of him just talking about it. So I asked Derek, and so Briz knew what was going on, and basically, long story short, it went crazy down there. He didn't want to do the interview, and then he's like, oh, come on, let's just go watch my kid play hockey. And then me and him just sat there and talked about it. And his first idea was like Star Wars Legos, because we were watching his son, and his son really liked the Star Wars Lego stuff. That's kind of how it started. And we ended up drawing a whole bunch of stuff for him. And I actually called up Bauer because of the whole Disney thing and the copyright infringement and all that. And Bauer was actually coming out with Star Wars masks that they were so they had certain character rights that we could use. So when I developed that mask, I drew up a good and bad side, which was good and bad of Briz, kind of, if it makes sense. And you got the good side with this, Yoda and all that, and Darth Vader and stuff. We just couldn't use any kind of guns or any kind of stuff like that. So I developed this mask, drew it up, he approved it, and I had Yoda in green. Okay, Yoda's green. He told me that we're not green, Franny. We are not green. We are not the Minnesota Wild. Do not make Yoda green. Make it tinted to the colors of the Flyers.
Oh, no.
Okay, so, as a harmless thing, as an artist, I just kind of tinted it, and the lightsaber was just tinted red or orange. And, he wore it the one game, and it got a lot of attention from the Star Wars fans, let's just say.
Yeah, and it's funny because on NHL Network recently, they had like a thing of the top, I think it was like top 50 goalie masks, and I think that mask was in like the top like 15, and I think it was the one, I don't remember if it was the one like that.
Which version?
Yeah, I think it was the one when Yoda was actually green. That's the one I remember.
I think it was the green Yoda.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we had to change it overnight. That's why I'm saying it, because I got a call. He played an amazing game, and of course with the orange Yoda, and I think Derek told me that he had a call from the Star Wars like group, like Disney, and they're like, because the movie was coming out. Remember the Star Wars, the newest one? Mm-hmm. So everyone thought that we knew something, that we knew that Yoda was maybe going to the dark side. And like it got out of hand. Like when I tell you it got out of hand, like we were getting emails saying if you knew stuff and all this kind of craziness. And I'm like, so Derek's like, hey, can you come down and change it for me? And I'm like, we have to go back to the Green Yoda, but we have a game Saturday, and I know it's Thursday, but could you bang it out? I said, absolutely. So I run down there in the morning, I grab it. I remember when I was grabbing it, Briz wasn't super happy about it, but we end up sneaking it out of there. But beforehand, I remember Hart kind of poking me in the rear end, and like he had his stick up and was waving it like this at me. He's like, whoosh, I'm like, he's like, I can't believe people are really going this crazy with this whole Star Wars thing. And I'm a Star Wars fan, but like it is what it is, man. Like, we play for the Flyers. They're kind of orange color. Like, I'm not changing the whole galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
It's only a hockey mask. So we end up changing it. And Briz didn't know. We kind of snuck it in the locker room. And I remember Derek, when I went down to the rink and we put it up in the game stall, we tilted it. And I think Derek ended up tweeting that the galaxy is back to normal again from the Flyers.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Because it was no harm, no foul. I mean, I didn't, see the movie or know anything about the movie, but Briz didn't say anything. He just wore it, and
He didn't even realize it.
I think he did, but who knows? I mean, I don't really know.
And it's
Because he didn't
funny.
call me about it. He didn't call me about like, hey, my mask is gone. If he wanted to wear it, I think Derek told him. I said, we really have to change it because of copyright infringement. And it only took me pretty much overnight. But we dropped it off Saturday morning. He had a 1:00 game, I think, against the Caps or something.
Now, how difficult is that for, like, since you're going for the whole Star Wars situation, how difficult is that with copyrights for players that maybe, like, want specific characters on their mask, like Carter Hart does with the Venom and the Carnage? Like, how difficult it is to go through copyright?
A lot of times, most of the times, like Dave Art and those guys will do masks and they'll do Legos and stuff. They don't really bother you as far as that's concerned. I do throw a couple pictures and stuff to Bauer because it is advertising through Bauer. I think a lot of times with me, I usually try to get their approval first and make sure it's okay because it's their mask, because they're going to get hit first, so they're pretty good. I mean, we're not like duplicating it or selling it or mass producing it. It's a one-off piece and that's it. And it's like a no harm thing. Carter likes Carnage and Venom and stuff like that. So his mask was another thing. All goalies all have their own stories, which is kind of cool for me because I was a goalie.
Do you think Briz's was the worst? Like, besides like Mason, do you think Briz's like whole situation was probably the worst you've been through in regards to a mask?
Absolutely. I remember Hart's was saying, like, we were walking out, he's like, man, you're like the Lindsay Lohan of goalie masks. And I'm like, I don't even know how to take that. And
What
he's
is
like,
that
well,
even?
dude, like, bad press is good press, right? And I'm like, I guess so. Like, yeah, because, I mean, it was really kind of harmless. We didn't really do it to piss the Star Wars fans off.
And just, like, I would say, like, going through, like, when you said, like, your, like, the hardest mask, like, the worst, like, what was your, I would say, favorite mask to work on, like, all out of all of them that you worked on?
That's a tough one. Well, one of my favorites, obviously, is Leighton. I became good friends with Michael Leighton through the years. I went to, he went to Chicago out there, and we did a Minions mask because he does a lot of charity work with Leighton's Minions. So doing his mask, my son was being born, so we didn't really know what we were having. And my wife said that at the time, she said, I'll never forget it. Like, Leighton, I really like that last name as a first name. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like painting. She says, and she never knew anything about hockey. And she was saying that if they make it to the Stanley Cup, let's name them Leighton. I was like, Okay, no problem. Let me keep painting. Here we go. There's no way, dude. There's no way. You know what I mean? We have 2 hurt goalies. Like that was the greatest season. Like, you know what I mean? And he ended up making it to. So my son's name is Leighton.
That's awesome.
He signed a whole bunch of things for me. I made a replica mask so Leighton can have it. But they became friends, which is kind of cool. That's what's so great about hockey, little things like that. I always tell that story because, we got to paint that year, which was our first kind of year getting into the NHL, and something like that happens, and we get to the Stanley Cup, and you're like, wow, this is pretty rad.
And what's the most times you've worked on a mask during a season, or multiple masks? How many times can you produce a mask for a goaltender in one season?
Most of the time, like Harts will do 3, and we kind of have them kind of already developed and designed. We already know what he's going to do for, I don't know that when this season ends for next season, which is coming up. I don't even know what's going on anymore, but we already know what we're going to do for next season. So, but we have one mask in mind. He usually does 3, unless there's a selective, the Ray Emery one was
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that.
Yeah, the Ray Emery one was a last minute one because we thought that we had the extra 3rd mask. And I said, well, what would you like to do? Because he wanted to do the all orange kind of Carnage mask. And it's the first time the first time I worked for Hart's was his Canadian team last year. And we did some quick ones right away for him. And that was kind of our starting of our relationship. Because I think his other painter, for some reason, quit and wanted to do something else, art-wise. So Derek said, hey, you want to use Franny? He's like, absolutely. So we kind of started talking to Hartsy. But he wanted to do the orange mask for the orange jerseys that he could wear with the white jerseys too, which was the Carnage one. And then he wanted the black one with the Venom for the black jerseys. And we had one mask left over. I said, well, we can do a white one to keep with the white jersey and the orange jersey and the black jersey. And he said, well, let me kind of come up with something for that. And that was really his idea. I was a big Ray Emery fan. I love the guy. Had a great relationship with him. And we came up with some really cool ideas back in the day. And he wanted to really pay tribute to him. And for me, that was the most important helmet I had to do because of how great he was. So that's kind of he does 3. Some guys do 2. It really depends on the goaltender. I know Devin Dubnyk, we do Doobie, and he'll do 2, most likely 3rd maybe if he's like, hey, I got this one beat up a little bit. Can you throw a 3rd one in? So Bauer will send it to us.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that too. We all know that you do a lot of goalie masks for the Flyers over the years, but are there, like you just said, Devin Dubnyk, are there any other players around the NHL that you work with the artwork for their masks, or is it just a small few?
A small few. I was doing a lot. It's more of a recommendation. I don't really try to push unless they get recommended. Devin will text somebody. I've done Tuukka Rask, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. He wore one of our masks, which is crazy. I have a picture of it. He wore it for 2 games, I think, and he got shelled.
Ooh.
I remember him texting me, and the second game he got shelled by, I think it was he's like, hey, you're going to watch. It was a televised game. It was against Detroit. And they end up banking one off of his bucket from behind the net. And but it was beautiful because it had Cheevers on it. And it's such a great mask. And to have him wear one that that he always doesn't wear, you know what I mean? It's kind of really cool to have the picture of Tuca wearing a mask that it's not the bear.
Yeah.
So
that's the most recognizable one. That's the one I always say.
Right. So we have one that he wore for 2 games, I think it was. And I end up texting him like, hey, is everything okay? And he ended up saying like the mask was too tight or something like that. But you never know. It's superstitious kind of things. But I did Jimmy Howard, believe it or not. I did Jimmy Howard and Mrazek for some cancer masks in Detroit. So that was kind of cool. I've done Jeff Hackett in Buffalo. So I've done some different ones. I don't like to step on toes because a lot of my friends do paint different ones. Dave Art really kind of takes over the league, so if we can get a few masks, that'd be great. But, this year I started picking up more colleges too. Like I do Penn State now and Michigan State and Clarkson. So I've picked up a few of the younger guys. And I got a few prospects. One's Peyton Jones went to Colorado. So I'm trying.
Yeah, and going off of that, like, I don't know if you've ever painted anything that's like it doesn't have to be a goalie mask. Is there anything that like else that you've painted that is like kind of blown up or is like really like recognized?
Well, we painted like some bike stuff. I worked with Orange County Choppers, Paul Senior last year for like a year and a half. We still do floating things for them. With all this COVID stuff going on, a lot of the TV shows and things are kind of at halt. That was pretty cool to do. Paul Senior, everybody thinks he's the tough guy. He's actually a big gentle giant. He's a sweetheart. So that was kind of fun. I've done a lot of bikes, but right now we kind of got into football. Kind of weird, right? So last year was a big thing for the Army-Navy game. We did all Navy's helmets.
Really?
178 of them.
How long did that take?
Well, you're dealing with Under Armour, so like there's a lot of decision makings between the the uniforms and that stuff. So it's a huge process. Right now, I have 360 helmets to do by like the end of August here. So we do Maryland too, Maryland football, and we do Navy football for just the Army-Navy game. So I kind of expanded into football a little bit, which I never thought. It's a really cool little market, because it's like a mass production kind of thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say like how different is that painting a hockey mask compared to a football helmet?
So different.
Really?
Because you're taking a Maryland flag, which we tried a lot of different versions that I threw because they're Under Armour school too. That I threw at them with the Terps and the stuff to try to make it more like a goalie helmet, and like with different pearls and things like that. But they're like, they just wanted to go back to the flag waving and simple and clean. Navy is fun because that's such an amazing game. A lot of times, like last year, it was in Philadelphia. The president's there, and my whole family is all Marines, so that military background really was kind of an honor for me to have that kind of under your belt. So this year was even better. Their uniforms are going to look, if we play, hopefully, are really, really cool. The helmets are really cool this year. Can't give anything away because it's all top secret. I'd like to. But that's what we've been working on now. And we had to sneak in L's mask just to try to – I just had to really finish up the back plate and twist a couple things.
And then, like, going off of that, like, so how long did that take?
L's, we actually had his mask done.
Oh, it was already done?
Other than the back plate. Right, I remember talking to him remember when they went to Tampa Bay and they wouldn't let him on the ice? I talked to Els that night, and then he texted me in the morning. He's like, hey, hold off on the helmet because they're not even letting us skate because NBA canceled their season before. And I said, well, okay, I'll just hold on to it. And we'll see what happens. And then finally, we were talking in between all that stuff. And seeing like back and forth what the player association and the players wanted to do and all that kind of stuff. I was even talking to Devin too. He was kind of filling me in on, no fans and different things that they were trying to do around robin, which they're doing now, which is crazy. We have some tough teams to play.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we do.
And
we do. We really do.
Yeah.
Now his Hart's, I haven't seen. Is he okay?
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
he is okay.
Okay.
Yeah, they said he had minor back spasms.
Okay.
And then he was out, I believe, for 2 days. He wasn't there, or he wasn't on the ice. Excuse me. And then they had a scrimmage that Thursday.
Okay.
And he was over in the. If you've ever been to the skate zone, it's the 2 rinks. So the Flyers and Phantoms rink. He was on the Phantoms rink after. And there was like 4 or 5 guys shooting on him, and then they interviewed. He was available for the media that day, and he said that he was okay, and that him and Elliott are going to be splitting the exhibition game on Tuesday.
Okay, that tandem, no joke, because I love Els. I think he's really good for Hearts with just his knowledge. Like he's so good in the locker room, and he's just like a great guy. They were playing so good.
I know.
Like, so good. I think when we stopped, we were second?
We were.
They were in second in the Metro, fourth.
They were like one point behind the first place in the Metro.
Yeah, and then they won 9 out of their last 10.
Yes, and then all this, and I'm like, oh my god. Like, it's the Philadelphia thing. Like,
we it's funny because we went through that. Like, I was so mad. Like, I cried. Like, I was pissed because I started becoming a fan the year of the lockout, and they weren't really that good. Like, they struggled. They were mediocre for a lot of years and missing the playoffs, making the playoffs, and all that stuff. So it was great to finally see a winning season, and then all this stuff just kind of ends like that, and it's like nothing you can do.
No, so fast. It's just like, hey, we cancel the season and that's it.
Yeah.
Everybody go home.
Yeah.
It's funny too because like on the night that when the NBA decided they were going to suspend the rest of the season, me and Chris were like a part of a group of other Flyers fans filming the playoff video that was going to be shown on the scoreboard for the home playoff games, and we're just like, man. Oh, that's never going to be shown now.
Yeah,
because the next day.
Yeah, and it's funny now because I think the thing was with that was like it was like people like over 18, like you get paid and stuff, and we finally like my dad like just got the check for it, so I'm assuming that it's supposed to be being shown at some point. I don't know if it'll be on TV or not, but I guess you get
cool
like
if they play it during the playoffs.
Yeah, it would be cool. Me and Amadeo can get our little 30 seconds of fame there.
In Toronto.
In Toronto.
Right? I mean, you put the work in. Like, they have to keep it and show it. Like, you would think. It's so weird now. I mean, it's just going to be, like, I watch baseball and I'm like, what? Like, I turn it off because it's like, the cardboard cutouts in the back aren't helping.
Like,
no. Don't get me started with the Phillies. I've been pissed off all day.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know. I'm waiting. Now, do we play an exhibition the 28th, right?
Yeah, we'll play on Tuesday, and then the first round robin game is on August 2nd, which is
Did they leave today?
Yeah.
Yes, they left today.
Okay. And everything's based out of Toronto?
Yes, it is.
For the East, yeah. The West is in Edmonton.
Okay. Oh, dude. This is going to be weird.
Yeah, and then they said the rounds 1 and 2 of the playoffs are in Toronto, and then the conference finals and Stanley Cup finals are in Edmonton.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how's it work? I don't really know, but, not to ask you guys questions, but you guys would know more than I. But, like, so they play each team one time?
For the round robin, yeah. So the Flyers, they play Pittsburgh in an exhibition game, which doesn't count. It's just like a preseason game. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's kind of just for shits and giggles. And then the round robin games, it's for reseeding. So the 1 through 4 teams, which was by points, it was Boston in first. I think they had 100 something points. Tampa was in second. The Capitals were in third, and the Flyers were in fourth. So the Flyers play the Bruins on the second, the Capitals on the sixth, and then the Lightning on the eighth. And then what they do is that goes by regular season rules, which is the 5-minute 3-on-3 overtime and a shootout, and it's also by points. So 2 points if you win, 0 if you lose, and then 1 in overtime or shootout if you lose. So say like the Flyers get like, I don't know, 4 points, and everybody else gets like 5 and then 2 or maybe like 3. Then they'll be filtered in there. It's kind of just like you reseed yourself by points. So the Flyers are already in fourth, and they can do no worse than fourth. So it's basically just like a win-win for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was worried. I don't know how that was working. So basically, they would play any of those teams and then they go into like just 5 games.
Yeah. So the way it's working out. So the round robin and the qualifying rounds are going to be played at the exact same time. So the Flyers, they have their automatic bid into the first round since they're in the 4th place in the conference.
Okay.
So they have to wait. So it's going to be the round robin tournament. They'll play their games. They'll reseed each other. Then they're going to have to wait to see what teams come out of the qualifying round.
Okay. That makes sense. And then are they just going to stay 5 games, not 7 games?
Every round, for the first round of the Cup final is all 7 games.
Oh, wow. So they're doing 7 games. Okay.
The qualifying games are going to be best of 5.
So basically, like with the round robin, just kind of take it as like they're finishing the regular season. And then when they start the 16-team playoffs, then that's really the playoffs.
Okay.
You get what I mean? It's hard to understand.
Confused.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to get around. We were confused too at first because it was like, well, who do they play in the round robin? And then he was like, well, they'll play Boston, Tampa, and the Capitals. I'm like, I'm such an idiot because I had no idea. And it's confusing. And then they did the thing with the draft lottery, which is just a whole mess too, of who gets like the number 1 overall pick. I don't know if you saw that, but the number 1 overall pick for this year's draft, it's a team that they don't know who it is yet. It's one of the 8 teams that loses in the
qualifying round.
Yeah.
And then the way that
it's
the way that's going to work. So after the qualifying rounds and the round robin is done, they're going to have another draft lottery to basically pick out of all those teams who lost who gets the first overall pick.
So they already had one. Yeah, they already had one for I think it was 8 through 1.
Yes.
And then they're going to have another one for 15 through 9, and then the number 1.
Wow.
It's nuts. And I personally think that they did it to add a little more of a spin-off to the playoffs. And the thing is, too, is that the Rangers, they play Carolina, and the Rangers have Carolina's first-round pick from a trade. So the Rangers could beat the Hurricanes, move into the 16-team playoffs, and then have a 12.5% chance of getting the number 1 overall pick because all the 8 teams have the same number chance. It's 12.5 to get the number 1 pick, so they all have the same chance.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, so like Pittsburgh can get it, Edmonton can get it, and it's teams that like don't need it, like the Penguins with Crosby and Malkin, the Edmonton with obviously McDavid, Draisaitl. I mean, it's nuts. It's crazy.
It is. It's very, very crazy.
That's a different story for another day.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry to get off topic, but I was curious because I've been watching a lot of TV, but I was wondering, like, you see it pop up, and I'm like, all right, I'm just waiting for hockey to come back.
Yeah.
And I was looking at that, and I'm like, why are we playing these 14? Like, I don't get it. Like, and then.
Well, see, now you know.
Now I know.
Now you know.
So now I'm more pumped up for hockey. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the game on Tuesdays at 4:00.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's against Pittsburgh, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And the Bruins one's at 3, and they didn't say the other time for the Caps and Tampa yet.
Okay.
And the funny thing too is the Flyers and Penguins are the first exhibition game out of everyone else.
Oh, this is the first hockey game we get to see Flyers Penguins.
Wow.
And then there's 3 games that night. It's Flyers Penguins at 4, Toronto Montreal at 8, and Edmonton and Calgary at 10:30.
That's a lot of hockey.
Definitely is.
And then I think the next day there's games at I think it's 12, 2:30, 5, 8:30, and 10 or 10:30, something like that. There's all throughout the day.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of hockey.
To me, it goes from
they're
like,
cramming everything in.
They are.
it goes from no hockey to basically you getting sick of it because it's on all the time.
Yep. Yep.
It's
And
basically
hopefully they stand up to the true test.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hockey for them.
And speaking of that too, like, so how are you thinking? Like, you think they have a chance?
Absolutely do.
Yeah.
If they can, I don't know. I mean, that's a lot of time off. So, mindset and like when you get into a groove, if they can get back into that locker room and feel that same groove with each other, absolutely.
Anything
because
can happen.
they were machines.
Yep.
I didn't care what goalie you put in. It didn't matter. Like Els was like lights out, and like usually you'll have like a which goalie in Flyers history, which goalie is going to be the best goaltender. But with Els and the way they're playing, oh man, tandem. It was the best tandem in the league. I feel. They just bounced off each other like anything. If one was really playing good and he would play 2 nights, the next one would give him a break and play 3 nights of like spectacular hockey. So. I feel super confident, honestly, but I'm a black and orange guy, so I could care less about any other teams. So I think so. I hope so. It just sucks because if we win the Stanley Cup, then we can't even walk down Broad Street. We'll all be wearing masks.
Yep.
Yeah,
hazmat suits and everything.
Right?
I told Amadeo
a
long time ago that I have my beach chair reserved on Broad Street whenever this happens.
And then wearing a hazmat suit at the same time.
Yeah, I'll be wearing a spray painted, and this is good because now maybe you can paint my hazmat suit.
See, done.
There you go.
We can do it. We'll paint it up like Gritty. Yeah, that's totally fine. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm kind of curious. It's like anything that in today's like world, it's like let's see what happens.
Yeah.
No one knows about COVID. No one. Like, let's just figure out what's going to happen and let it go. Like, let's let this hockey team, gel and get back to where they need to be. It just sucks for those guys, honestly.
Yeah, definitely.
It really does.
And we've been saying, like, the one team that catches fire throughout at the start is going to be the team that's unstoppable.
Whatever team gets the momentum.
Whoever
wins is going to remind me of the 2016 Penguins. Because that team hit momentum in March and never looked back, and they were phenomenal, and they basically just steamrolled through everybody, and they won the cup. And then they followed it up again the next year.
I know. Well, let's not go there, but yeah. I was just talking to Dubnik, and it was like a month ago or something, or 2 months ago, and he was saying that it's going to be hard as a goaltender. Because I asked him, like, you as a goaltender, you coming back, what is it going to be like, to be that goaltender with no fans, no crowd, nobody yelling like you suck, nothing. He's like, if you get scored on, is it going to be a motivational boost? It's just going to be a quiet thing. They're going to be yelling and screaming, hey, we scored, and he'll pull the puck out. He's like, it's mental for a lot of these guys going back and really, especially goaltenders too, like getting scored on, no one's booing, no one's cheering, no one's, that noise really makes a difference in playoff hockey.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think one thing is with Hart is that he's not rattled by that, so the Flyers might have an advantage.
I agree, totally. Yep. That kid is, he is. I don't even understand. Like, he's 21 years old, and I talk to him, and I'm like, wow, he's so balanced, if that's a good word. He just knows where he has to be, what he needs to do. He's a strict professional. He really is. He's good for the kids. He's good for the Flyers as a goaltender. And that's why a lot of people didn't like the signing of Els last year, this year. For the 1 year, and for me, as far as like getting to know these guys, and I'm sure Derek even says the same thing, is once you get to know them and how they are off the ice, they're just good, solid people. And to have that in a locker room for a young kid like Hart is amazing because it just makes him more of a professional like Elliott. Ella's been in the league a long time.
Yeah,
He's played with a lot of like NHL greats, and he's got to see Marty Brodeur and all these guys, and you know, he's a professional. And I think Hart at this point at 21, you see a lot of these kids come in and, you know, they either make it or break it. You know, I painted Cal Heater's mask. Remember Cal?
Mm-hmm.
He was an amazing goaltender. And, you know, I remember that game he went in and you know, it wasn't the greatest game. And I love Cal. He's such a great kid.
I was at that game.
Yeah. And I was super pumped. He was a Felix Potvin guy too. And, yeah, it was a tough one, you know, because you could make or break your career.
Yeah, definitely.
By a bad game.
It's crazy.
It is.
But
goaltending stuff, man.
Yeah,
it is.
That's why I like to just paint them and watch.
But Franny, again, we definitely thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Of course, man. I appreciate being here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
All right, guys. Again, we will have a little bit of Flyers talk after this, so please stay tuned. And again, you can, Franny, just one thing is, where can people find you at and follow you, social media, things like that?
Social media is at PaintZoo. We have Twitter's PaintZoo, so pretty much everything is PaintZoo, hopefully. I'm not very good at social media things, so you have to bear with me. So I was trying to figure out the Skype thing, you know? So,
yeah.
So I don't know. That's why I social distance myself and I paint. So hopefully we can do some cool ones. I'm really stoked about Hart's new one. So hopefully, you know, look out for that. And we'll see what happens. Let's go Flyers.
All right, well, you heard it here first. You definitely want to look out for Hart's new mask. And again, guys, thank you for listening. We will talk to you all again soon.